Hello, everybody. I am Captain Jim Palmer, the Dream Business Coach. I'm the founder of the Dream Business Mastermind and Coaching Program, creator of Dream Business Academy. I'm the founder of No Hassle Newsletters, my extraordinary done for you newsletter program that served over 1,200 small business owners in 9 countries. Most importantly, I am the host of Dream Business Radio, now in its 10th year. This is episode 523, and I have another fantastic guest for this live edition. My special guest is Yewande Faloyin, and I think I just did that correctly. Yewande, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on the show, Jim. I'm really excited
Oh,
about this.
this is going to be great. It's
Yeah.
such an important topic, but anyway, hey folks, this episode of Dream Business Radio is brought to you by the Dream Business Mastermind and Coaching Program. If you're an entrepreneur, small business owner, if you're tired of slow to no growth in your business, if you're feeling overwhelmed, unfocused, and especially if you'd like to learn how to create multiple streams of revenue in your business, then you want to be part of this extraordinary virtual mastermind group led by me, Captain Jim Palmer, the Dream Biz Coach. You can find out more at dreambizcoaching.com. That is dream, coaching.com. All right, let me tell you about Yewande. There we go. That's permanently embedded now, and we'll dive right in because today I want to find out why being busy does not equal productivity, right? So many people, I think, are stuck in the hamster wheel. Anyway, Yewande is the founder and CEO of, oh boy, I should have asked about this one. Otito, I think is the.
That's good. You're on a roll
Oh
today.
my
You're on a roll,
gosh, I'm
Jim.
on a roll. It's like reading the early Testament, some of those big names, which anyway, she specializes in coaching entrepreneurial executives and serial high achievers to accelerate into more senior and impactful leadership positions. As a certified leadership and performance coach with leadership experience in high pressure environments, kind of like running a small business, I would think, Yewande helps her clients develop the skills and mindsets critical for success, as well as the behaviors and actions that enable them to achieve consistent and sustainable peak performance. And before founding her company, Yewande held leadership positions in McKinsey and Company and Morgan Stanley, just to name a few small-time companies. Anyway, Yewande, how are you doing? Welcome to Dream Business Radio.
Thank you. I'm doing great. I love the premise of this. So I'm really excited about our conversation
Yes,
today.
it's so interesting because I think I've mentioned probably the last several weeks, but I got pitched or spotlighted Dream Business Radio. I got like 160 or 65 applicants to be on the show, and you go through them, and I'm an online entrepreneur. I'm a business coach myself, so there's only so much you can do for digital marketing and mindset. So I like to mix it up. But this is honestly a topic that I think is so important that I really haven't had a major guest on in a while. This whole productivity piece, because I think for a lot of people, myself included, in the early days, months and months go by and you look back and go, God, I've been busy. And you wipe your brow and you go, but what the hell did I get done? Like nothing.
Right?
So I think productivity is really important. Anyway, before we dive in, I told you we love to share nuts and bolts, some real strategies, things that people can learn and implement as a result of watching Dream Business Radio. But we also, my guests tell me over and over again, we love the backstories. So I think what I've come to realize after doing over 500 shows is people like information, entertainment with a little bit of inspiration. And I think people get inspired when they learn that other people struggle, perhaps. I don't know anybody that I've met that had that their first year was revenue free, which was my case, but I know everybody has struggles along the way. So what's your journey, in a couple sentences, not a couple sentences, couple of minutes, what was your journey that got you to where you are now?
Yeah, it's you're right. It's a roller coaster, right? Nothing's a straight line. But my journey, I always started actually in corporate because I think a lot of people, especially if you've been in corporate and had businesses, it's always different, right? Some people kind of just go straight into business. A lot of people have worked places and gone in. And I worked at great companies. And we'll come back to the busyness piece, but I eventually got to a place where I burnt out. I burnt out twice in 18 months. And my solution at that point, which again, we'll link back to the busyness stuff when we come in, was actually because I was so burnt out. I was like, I'm just going to stop. I'm going to stop everything that I'm doing. I'm not going to figure out what my next move in. I'm not going to figure out what my next big company is, which I assumed would be the path.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started to explore a little bit more and I learned about this thing called coaching. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is literally what I've been doing my whole life. But I didn't realize it was an actual job.
It's
I
funny
didn't
when
know.
that light bulb goes off, right?
I know. It's like, this is not a real thing, but wait a second, it could be a real thing. Which is also why I love the premise of this. And my first year, I actually think that my burnout and where I came from in corporate actually benefited me because I entered my business journey actually with a lot of the things that you share and you talk about, which is building the dream business that I wanted. I almost had like a mindset of what's the worst that could happen? Why don't I just like swing for the fences? I'll probably fail. So if I hit like half of that, I'll be okay. And so I started my business focusing on my networks to kind of find clients. And it's honestly the best thing that I've ever done.
So I think you said you burned out twice. Was that working for those very large
That was
companies I
McKinsey.
mentioned?
Yeah, so that was working for McKinsey. I always say that it was the best 3 years of my corporate career that I would never do again because obviously burning out consistently is not sustainable.
I mean,
And
some of those
also,
companies, like McKinsey and some of the other ones, and I even know some people who go into the financial sector, but you get in those big companies and it is drive, 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 results, 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 and you feel like you're just never getting anywhere. I'm guessing that was probably what led to your burnout.
100%. What's interesting about McKinsey is I am convinced that had I not spent that time there, I would have not got to business ownership this quickly because there was
Yeah.
so much that I learned. So there was a lot that was to do with impact, but there was a lot that was just doing and doing and doing and doing. Hence the busyness, hence not stopping, hence not getting space, and therefore burning out. So beyond, and I'm sure we'll speak about a couple of different things, beyond it not being good for business, i.e., creating the results that you want, it's also not good for us as people in terms of like enjoying life, creating the thing that you want in your life beyond the business.
It's interesting. And when I look back now at 64, I look back on all the different things I've done in my career that led me to become an entrepreneur. But those skills are what makes me a better entrepreneur and now a better coach. But when you go through some of that stuff, it's like, God, this sucks. It's like,
Yeah.
I just can't I'd say yes to one thing and I get it done. And the boss gives me 4 more things. And somebody would tell me, well, that means he knows you can get it done. Yeah, but I should not be the only one in this company doing anything. Not that I ever thought that, but it's interesting, when you look back in hindsight, what brought you to the position you are now. So I'm just curious. So everybody has felt burnout. In fact, one of my clients has a specialty in burnout, is writing a second book now. And how long did it take you to come out of that burnout and to realize, man, I should really help other people by coaching and consulting and doing what you're doing?
Yeah. I mean, my burnout was really, really bad. It was, I always think about like the sort of 6 dimensions of us, right? So spiritually, I wasn't connected to what I was doing, mentally, completely cluttered. Physically, I mean, my shoulder hurt, my wrist looked like I was like, my whole body was breaking down. Emotionally, I was really on edge. Socially, I barely like hung out with people who I loved for the past 3 years. And then environmentally, everything just felt like cold and just out of place. So I mean, it was just like across all measured. And it happened for such a long time that in terms of coming out of it, I always say that it probably took me 9 months, 9 to 10 months to feel like, okay, I feel like I'm back to being me. Like it was, in hindsight, I should have probably gone to a doctor, which I didn't, because I was like, oh, I'm still functioning. I'm okay.
Well, I'll feel better tomorrow.
I'll feel better tomorrow. Other people are still okay. They're still functioning. So I should be okay as well. So it took me a really long time. The benefit I think I had was that part of my recovery process was also part of my learning what I wanted to do with my life and that I wanted to start my own business. They sort of went hand in hand. I also booked a yoga teacher training course. So I also for a few months, I wasn't doing anything except like yoga and like meeting people. So that space, and I talk about this when I also talk about like busyness and productivity, creating space is so important because then you're not in the weeds, right? I think had I still been working, I mean, it would have taken me significantly longer to come out of it.
By the way, I should tell all the people watching and listening to us live, and even on the replay a little bit later, the reason we're on at 2 o'clock today is Yewande is in the UK and it's now 7
Yes.
p.m. there. So this was a nice little compromise for me coming on too late or too early, whatever. But it's interesting. By the way, you mentioned the body ache in your shoulder and stuff. I mean, I've learned how impactful stress can be
Mhm.
on you physically. And to me, I've come to learn without you even knowing it's going on until it's not till it's too late. But I've really learned that stress can really wreak havoc with your body. And at one point, even a few months ago, and we were kind of going through this whole process of, do we move off the boat or what do we do? And I
Mm.
thought, oh, I'm getting the flu. I'm getting sick because I had real bad stomach. And it's like, no, I'm just like totally stressing about this. And once I identified that, I did whatever I can do to, kind of recenter myself. Boy, I felt better. So stress really is a major contributor to body issues, right? So on that pleasant springboard, let's. I know your niche is working with high achievers and ambitious entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
kind of how to accelerate. But do you work with people at the level that are kind of pre-burnout, that they recognize it? Or I don't know too many people, to be honest with you, who recognize I'm in pre-burnout, I better fix it. It's usually fixing it after the fact.
Yeah, that's a good question. A lot of my clients who I work with are not in the midst of burnout.
Okay.
They've experienced it because, I mean, it's just kind of like their fast-paced life. What level of experience they've had of burnout, again, it differs for different people. But you're absolutely right. When you are pre or in burnout, I think it's often very difficult for people to see it because you're right in the midst of like the storm. And at the same time, again, when you think about busyness, it's like, oh, I just have to stay on the wheel, right? Because you don't really
Right.
know anything else. And there's also a fear of getting off the wheel, because what then happens, right? Am I going to like spin and get out of control because the wheel's going so fast? So a lot of the people who I work with are actually in a space where they have a little bit of space to think. And therefore, it means that the work that we do is a little bit more sustainable in terms of actually creating those new ways of working, which means you can still have and often have greater impact, but without doing as much.
Yeah. I think, my own uneducated philosophical brain, whatever, says most people, I think, feel like when they're busy, they're therefore making progress.
Yeah.
And I actually went through a period where I think in around 2012 to 14, somewhere in there, that's when I first created my own live event. But I'm going to live events. I started writing multiple books inside of a short span, and I was busy, busy, busy. And I do believe some of it was actually helping me grow. But some of it, I think, was actually masking some of the things you should be doing. I'll give you an example. One of my early and longtime fears was public speaking, putting on my own live events. So I resisted that for a long time. So I'm going to these different events thinking, okay, I'm going to go to this event. I'm going to learn from this person, this guy or this gal. I'm going to do this, that, and the other thing. I'm going to read if I could just read one more book and uncover the nugget about this. But it was like all this stuff. And eventually I just said, you know what? I've got to just step up and do this. I've got to, whether my own internal voice was, be a man, step up and put on your first event. And if 10 people come, maybe 20 will come the second time or whatever. But I think sorry about this extremely long question, but my busyness, at least my case, was, I think, preventing me. It was like holding off just getting in there and doing the hard stuff that may be the right thing to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. And I love the fact that you said my busyness was
Yeah.
due to dot, 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 because we
Mhm.
sometimes also forget that we all have our own perspectives, right? We all have our histories and our lives and our preferences and all of that sort of stuff. So you being able to identify that and the source of like, why am I just being busy? It's because of that, means that you can then tackle it, right?
Yeah.
Whereas I think sometimes we sort of just lump ourselves, and while it makes sense why we're busy, right? We could hypothesize and we could, go philosophical about this and be like, oh, it's probably because when we grow up in school, like every hour of the day is scheduled for you and you just have to do
Structured and
stuff,
busy.
right?
That's right.
It's structured, it's busy. You have to stay busy. You have to do stuff. You have to, like, we are conditioned. There's so many things that we could hypothesize about, But if folks who are listening really want to get to the root of affairs and actually change things, I think taking a leaf out of what you've just said there and going, what is the source of my busyness, right? Why am I being busy? Another thing that sometimes comes up when you were speaking, I sort of thought about it, was a lot of folks who are ambitious, especially business owners. There's something about also proving to other people that you're actually doing stuff. But it's like, is the proof in the doing or is the proof in the impact, right? So a lot of the work that I do is getting people to shift that perspective around what's the purpose of the thing you're doing, right? Is it just to do things, right? Because as you said earlier, the reward for doing is getting more stuff to do. There will always be things to do. But if you switch it to actually impact, results of value, then you realize actually there are specific things that get you to where you want to go. And then it actually feels a little bit more effortless and you create more.
So I want to make sure we give some nuggets on how to fix what we're putting out there. But I think sometimes you gotta diagnose what's going on and then prescribe. So that's why I want to stay on this just for a few more minutes.
Yeah.
I believe busyness, it limits success. I think busyness drains you, right? Because you're always busy. You see people, and believe me, I used to do this. Oh, I get up at 3:30 in the morning. I did, and all these other things. But it's like and there's almost like a culture right now of bragging about, I sleep 2 hours a night, or whatever. I'm doing this, that, and the other thing. I'm like, okay, we all used to do that, I guess. I don't know. Some people still doing it. But I also think busy leads to mistakes. Not that there's, because I think the flip side of that is being busy. Is that fueled by perfectionism? You know what I mean? If I stay busy, stay in production mode, I won't eventually, in my world, I go, there's design, production, implementation, and then there's like the proof of the pudding. So if I want to hold off before I launch, whether it's a book or course, or whatever, if I want to hold off the launch because I fear it's not going to be perfect, I'm just going to stay busy. We're getting ready to launch. We're in pre-launch mode. We're in soft launch mode. All these things, instead of put the damn thing out there.
Do it.
This show is going to go down in history as the longest questions ever, but hopefully you followed my rant there.
Yeah, no, I mean, not a rant at all. I think you picked up on a lot of really important things. There's a default assumption that being busy equals will get you to success, right? But what I'm hearing from you is recognizing that actually it doesn't necessarily get you the results that you actually want, right? Doing things for the sake of doing it doesn't, if I think about it, like we all have a certain amount of energy and time to do things, and you can choose. But busyness isn't choosing. Busyness is just doing and doing and doing and doing. And you talked about it not necessarily getting you results. Not only does it not get you results, it's not often enjoyable, right? We talk, like, even if you think about hamster wheel, that doesn't sound like fun. Like, who wants to be on a hamster wheel for their whole lives? But it's so ingrained in the default. And I think you're right. When folks start to recognize that actually it doesn't get you to where it is that you want, if you really stop and think about it, then it becomes there's a lot more motivation to switch it, right? As opposed to just going, busyness isn't good, but why isn't it good?
So, is it fair to say there's no productivity without some enjoyment? Because there's not a lot of enjoyment when you're just busy, 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 unless I would say it's keeping me from doing something really unpleasant by staying busy, right? But in general, assuming you're not somebody with messed up fears and demons like I've had, but when you're productive, I do think that comes. I mean, when I write a book, boom, I feel great. When I launch a course, I feel good. So being productive, maybe we should talk about in your world, Yewande, what does being productive mean?
Yeah. Sorry, I'll go back to something you just said a second ago. The coach in me was going to ask you about your fears because I was like, that's interesting. Why are you doing things that you don't like? Anyway, but that's a different thing. Productivity. So for me, productivity all has to do with results. Busyness has to do with just doing. Doing could be constructive. It could be non-constructive. It could be fun. It could be non-enjoyable. Productivity has to do with taking an action that creates a result that moves you forward towards the thing that you want. So I love what you said there about like enjoying what you're doing as well, because can you be productive without enjoying what you do. You can be, but it's a lot harder. It's a lot less sustainable. And at some point, it just doesn't match up, right? You can kind of force yourself to do something to be productive for a short period of time, but try doing that for 10 days in a row or 30 days in a row
Right.
when you've got like lots of other stresses or things that you're thinking about. So yeah, I think when I think about productivity, it always has a very clear end goal. And that's where we then go into prioritization and focus and energy and enjoyment and all the things that actually get you to where it is that you want. Whereas busyness, you could be running around in circles being busy, right?
Right.
It doesn't necessarily get you to an end goal that you're clear about.
So a huge light bulb moment. And this is honestly one of the reasons I love doing this show. There's a lot of business reasons, but I learned so much. And when I meet great people like you, so you said something, and I've surprised one of our there it is, Craig Faloyin. I was just gonna say, I can't believe one of the viewers didn't. They often will type it in because they know I can't multifocus. Productivity equals results. That is such a halogen light bulb moment for me. Productivity equals results, and the flip side of that was busyness. What was busyness equivalent to?
I'm trying to remember what I said now.
It was brilliant. So we'll have to go.
We're gonna rewatch it. We're gonna rewatch it. Busyness is
goodness.
just doing. It's probably something like business is doing, but you're just
busyness is doing. Productivity is results, and that's it. Results only come from when my own continuous language is when you do launch, when you do put it out there, when you do, create and sell and market and things like that. Productivity turns into results. Busyness turns into crap. You didn't say that, I did, but but there has to be an end goal. And I guess that's where the good feeling is, Gosh, I feel like I'm on the therapist couch right here live in my interview. But so 5 years.
You sound like one of my clients.
I know. So 5 years ago, when Stephanie and I moved on that beautiful boat right there, I was already working 3 days a week, basically Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and we would travel like Friday through Monday, weather dependent, all that. But one of the things that I had learned to do, because for the first, say, 17 years, 15 years of my being a business owner, I was one of these busy people. I was up at 3:30. Whenever I wrote a book, I just got up early and wrote because the house was quiet and I was busy during the day. So when else was I going to do it? But in the end, I think that busyness it was productive because it did lead to results. So it led to 6 books. It led to courses. It led to me launching a successful coaching program, which led to me being able to work 3 days a week and therefore travel on that boat. Right. So one of the things I realized, again, here's a candidate for the longest question in history. But one of the things I realized was that I can be far less busy, still be productive, and actually enjoy my life more than when I thought I was like, pardon the expression, balls to the wall, busy building multiple businesses. So it's like, wow. So I kind of realized that, but interviewing you and getting to know you has really put a fine point on it. So I want to thank you for that.
No, thank you for sharing that. And it almost, even when you say it, right, for some people, that sounds so counterintuitive. It's like what you're doing less, but you're creating more. Like that, it almost sounds, and I think sometimes that's a bit difficult for people. It's like, how is that even possible? But to your point, you focus on the productivity side of it as opposed to the busyness side. And no doubt the fact that you're enjoying it and you have a better life means that you're even more productive, right? Than you would be without.
Enjoyment is a big part of it. That is really, and it's actually been something that's personally a little bit difficult for me. Because in the early years, I've actually shared with my coaching group, in the early years, if I was traveling on a Monday and Stephanie and we had a nice meal somewhere and we're back on our boat, I'm like, I feel so guilty. Most of the world's working right now. I'm not. I felt guilty for actually enjoying the lifestyle that I was blessed to create. So there is some of that, but that would be a whole nother therapist couch session.
Yeah, guilt's a big thing. Go ahead.
Yeah, what would be some of the ways that the people watching and listening now and even on the replay could become more productive? What would be some actionable steps they could take?
Yeah, I'll give 3 that come to mind immediately. The first is super simple, but it's also very difficult. Create space, right? one of the best things that I ever did was every Monday, like everyone knows me. No one puts any time in my calendar before 2 o'clock on a Monday. I mean, it sounds ridiculous, right? It's like
At your own peril, right?
That's me. But that space means that I do all my, that's for me personally. That's where I do my strategizing. I know what I'm focused on for the week. I know how that fits in the big goal. I'm so clear about it that my week starts with productivity in mind, not busyness, right? And so I never have that pressure to just go straight into busyness. That's the first. The second, which is a little bit more tangible, but it's related.
So before you move on to number two, so create space for the entrepreneurs. It's very cool to have a day. Like a lot of my clients, and I even did this. Friday was like marketing day. So I didn't do a lot of implementation. I know I worked with CPAs and other, service professionals that they didn't see clients. Friday was marketing day. And there's an expression in the Dan Kennedy marketing world where you work in your business and not on, you work on your business and not in your business, right? And so it's like, how do I become the marketer of my business and not just the person running my business? So creating the space to do that is really important. That's a good one. Okay, now number two, please.
Number two, it's challenging yourself to, so as consultants at McKinsey, we'd always have like, when someone asks a question, it's like, there are 3 points, which I just did now, and I didn't even realize I did it. Like, honestly, when I said it, I was like, I didn't realize. But what's great about that, whether it's 1 point or 3, is that it makes you really focus. So one of the things that I do with my team is every Monday when we meet, and we meet at 2:00 because I don't meet before then.
2:01, that's right.
2:01. We actually have like a check-in where the first 4 questions are, if you achieve nothing else this week, what's the one thing that you'll achieve?
Okay.
I don't care about anything else, right? Just tell me the one thing. And that focuses your mind so much because you have to go, what's the one thing? Not the 50 million things that you have to achieve over the next 20 years, but the one thing for this week. And when we focus that, it helps to prioritize. We also go into why is that important and what needs to be done, like what does success actually look like and what needs to be done to achieve it. But it means that, again, you start to focus your mind on productivity because you think, what's the most important thing to achieve the results that's most important for us right now?
Okay. And 3, did you have a third?
Yes. The third thing is experiment. I know that sounds a little bit weird, but I'll tell you a little bit of story. And the experimentation kind of goes into personalizing it for yourself. I remember this distinctly. I was in Nigeria. My niece was about 5 years old, and I remember having the busiest, in quotes, day ever. I was running around. My brain wasn't working. I had like 50 million things to do. I had like deadlines. Thank you. I had deadlines the next day, and I was freaking out. And a part of me just went, you're not doing the thing that you work with your clients on. I was like, what do I need right now? I need creativity to figure out what I need to set up for the deadline I had the next day. I was like, what's the thing that'll make me most creative? My niece, my children. I don't have kids, but I have nieces and nephews. Kids are often the most creative people that I hang around. So I stopped. I literally put my laptop aside. It's like middle of the day. I have 50 million things to do. I find my niece. I'm like, hey, what can we do, Olivia? And she's like, oh, let's go play. So we went outside and I went out swinging. I know that sounds ridiculous, but I came back in after an hour. My brain was so much clearer. Creativity was moving around because I've been hanging out with a 5-year-old for the past hour. And I literally did the thing that I was concerned would take me 3 hours in like half an hour. Wow. So experiment with it. Don't be afraid to try, because if what you've been doing hasn't been working, you've got to break the cycle at some point. And that was a big lesson for me in the way that I kind of create that space and focus and help me move forward.
Yeah. And that was such a huge lesson you just shared. The way I phrase what you just described there is you must be in integrity with yourself, right? And I think no matter what kind of business owner or just man or woman you are, you need to be in integrity with yourself. But I think it's doubly important if you are a coach or consultant or you're someone who is leading other people, especially in a paid capacity, and you say you should be doing this and you're not doing it yourself, right? Or you should be doing this and you're not doing it yourself. And so that's being integrity with the people you work with. Yeah. But there's also, I think, being integrity with yourself. For example, we all learn on the calendar, you should actually block time, do this, that, and the other thing. And I do that as well. You should block time for exercise. You should block time for this. And if something comes up and, well, all right, I'll just do that tomorrow. That's not being in integrity with yourself.
Yeah.
Which is really one of the lessons that I heard or learned from a wonderful mindset coach, Melanie Benson. But she said, you have to be in integrity with yourself. Jim, you're telling people to do this, that, and the other thing, yet I know you're working like 9 days a week. If there were 9, you'd be working 10. And so you need to take some time off and recharge and regroup and re-energize yourself. And so a lot of different ways, but I think that is a core component of productivity is being, because we all kind of know one day what we need to do, and we can set the goals. I love what you said about what's one thing you're going to do. Now, chances are they may do something else, but it's important at the beginning of every week. So what's that one thing you're going to do this week above all else? And that elevates it to a much higher priority, I would think.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to pick up on one quick thing that you just said, which is really important.
Okay.
So much of the work that I do goes through mindset, which is really important because you're right. A lot of people know. You can Google, Google will tell you the things to do to be more productive. But the reason you're not doing it is because there is a mindset, there's a background, there's a perspective that's holding you back. Similar to what Jim said before. Go deep on that and figure that out for yourself. Solve that, and it becomes so much easier.
Well, no offense to the 522 other interviews I've done, but this is my favorite interview of this week, at least. No, I don't want to offend anybody. This is a fantastic interview. I look up and it's 2:31. I'm like, oh my gosh. So we do have to go, but man, my hat's off to you. You definitely know your stuff. And believe me, when I have the one sheets come across my desk, I can sort of tell like who's for real and who's not. And sometimes I get fooled, which is why sometimes I'll do pre-interviews, because I can ask 2 or 3 questions and know if your dream business is, and no offense if you're struggling, but if you're only making $14,000 a year, you're not going to be coaching somebody how to have a 6-figure business. I mean that with all due respect, because we all start somewhere, but you really know your stuff, which is why I was excited to put you on the air. So thank you. I'm sure people you one day want to connect with you and get more of your brilliance. I don't know if you have a podcast or videos but how could they do that?
Thank you so much. Honestly, it's been so great, Jim. One of the benefits of having my name is no one else has it on LinkedIn, or at least that I've seen online. So full name, Yewande Faloyin. If you search for me on LinkedIn, you'll find it, or at Yewande Faloyin. Would it be cool if I offer a little freebie, which I think aligns with what we've discussed?
Absolutely. Yes.
So I'll shoot this to you as well, Jim, so you can put it in the show notes. But I have a freebie called How to Perform in Business Like an Elite Athlete. Okay. And it really goes through a lot of what we've discussed today. So if you go to otitoleadership.com/performance, you'll see it. You can download it for free, and it'll take you through some of these steps in a more structured, sustainable way.
That's awesome. And you'll make sure I get that, because I did not write it down just now.
I will. No, I will.
Focusing on getting us closed out here. So send me that, because I'll as I said, I'll produce this for replay on video and the audio. So I want to make sure I go to that resource. Thank you so much. What a treat and an honor for you to share all your knowledge and wisdom with Dream Business Radio audience.
Of course. Thank you so much, Jim. Really, really excited. And thanks for having me.
You are so welcome. Folks, that wraps up this very special interview with my really special guest. And you know why I say special guest all the time, Yewande Faloyin. And that's the number of times I said that correctly. I'm proud of myself. I highly recommend you connect with her and follow her and learn from her and take advantage of that free resource. You can connect with me at getjimpalmer.com. If you're interested in joining me and about 27 other smart entrepreneurs, you can check out my Dream Business Mastermind and Coaching Program at dreambizcoaching.com. Remember, as part of my legacy program, because I keep getting whiter every day, remember, you can get all 6 of my books in their digital format at Amazon, obviously Kindle. As a Nook book, you can get them if you're interested in Barnes & Noble. That's bnn.com. And they're also, all 6 are in the iBook store, totally for free. If you're checking this out on the replay, which most people are, just put hashtag replay, good interview, thanks Yewande, whatever. Just let me know you're out there. As we're doing this live, we're certainly praying for all our friends and folks in Florida who might be in harm's way here. So we're keeping a good thought for you. But that's it. Until this time next week, another fantastic interview. I am Captain Jim Palmer, and I'm the Dream Business Coach, and you take good care.